Hail. So, second war of the season here against x5e. We have a number of friends over there. As you can see, I do have Venompool on the team. Excited about that later. My first draft of the offense actually had me running Massacre instead of Reed because he could have handled all of the fights, and we'll get to those as we go through this. But it would have meant somebody else taking this Havok with a less than ideal counter, and that's not worth it, right? So that's why we're over here with this Nimrod. Now, this is the Path 3 node with static defense, and Nimrod is not shock immune or resistant, because obviously we don't have Odin on the team. And so this isn't the perfect counter, but it is a good one, because we at least don't have to worry about Havok detonating, and Nimrod is very good against mutants. So what we're going to focus on here is trying not to hit him too many individual times. So I could have gone for a heavy there, but I just didn't react to the opening parry quite soon enough. Weird that he's being quite this passive. And what I should be doing here is avoiding getting backed up by hitting his block. Because he was going super passive. Now he's just coming in for this. Because what that ends up doing is because we have to dex the heavy twice at the wall, it gives him time to recover, and he throws that special one into our faces. If we had been hitting into his block, which does not give him those chitin charges, and therefore would not have moved him closer to an armor, which is what we're trying to avoid as much as possible, then we could have done that. He doesn't have time to recover from that. We can safely counter. That's what we want to do. See, here it is again. We just need to create space. But I had in my head, don't hit him too much. And I let that bleed over into don't hit his block as well, which is obviously not the correct move. So I could have played this a little bit better and avoided losing that health at the start. But once we get rolling, Havok's initial medium being a non-contact hit and us not being able to parry it is actually very good for us because it means that we end up landing more parries throughout the fight than we would against some other mutant. And so it's very easy for us to refresh Eradicate. We haven't fallen out of it since we first went into it. And we have a ton of armor ups. And because Eradicate has the properties of Blitz, that means that we have a huge attack bonus increase. So again, this is only a rank 3 Nimrod, but it is Sig 200. And we got a little bit lucky there. Didn't take a single shock debuff, but we were also just completely obliterating Havok, right? We were able to hold on to the pre-fight from Reed, so any shocks that did slip through would have been weaker. And we weren't landing all that many actual hits, so the RNG didn't have to be quite as good as it was. Very good counter. So then we take Reed here against Tigra, and this is just a complete nothing fight. Like, if you get hit by Tigra's specials, they tend to hurt, but Reed also has pretty significant physical resistance, so even if that happens, it's not the end of the world. And if she had hit us with that special one, then she just would have gotten yet another stack of the Careful Study debuff, and then this next special would have actually activated the passive, and so if we get hit by subsequent special ones, there's just no risk to it. It's not going to kill us. It's probably not even going to cost us that much health. And because he's Defiance, we don't have to worry about Mystic Dispersion. We don't have to worry about pushing her to her special 2. We can just keep control of the fight, keep baiting out those special ones. We've been nailing the evades, but again, even if they were less than perfect, not much risk to it. And I would have thrown another special one because I knew the fight was over and we would have held on to some more debuffs for the charges, but not the end of the world. We stay ramped. We move on to this Thor here. Already have those pre-fights. You see me just ramping this up, or just throwing these boosts on. So like I said, Massacre definitely could have taken Tigra. You wouldn't have had the suppression, so that one Reed probably is better for, but this Thor, Massacre would have been just as good here, I think, or at least equally safe. We just would have made sure to spam the special one to control his power gain, and that would have been the only thing. But Reed will of course be quite good for it. We do have class disadvantage, so not going to hit quite as hard, But really, all Thor has going for him here is a lot of health. A really important thing that makes Reed great for this fight is that when Thor triggers his power gain, it's calibrated to give him exactly as much power as he needs from that moment to go red. And so having even one Petrify up from Mr. Fantastic means that he won't get there. Because if he's at 1 bar and he triggers that power gain, then he would gain 2 bars of power. You're reducing that by 40%. He would just end up at a little over 2 bars. See right here? I mean, at this point we have 2 Petrifies up, but we can just completely ignore that. He gains barely no power at all, or sorry, barely any power. We're already reversing willpower. There we reduce backup recovery. This is probably the single easiest power snack fight I have ever taken with Reed. There's just basically nothing going on, and this would be extremely easy even without Defiance. Because by the time that we dexed the first time, we already would have had the special 2. By the time he gets his first power gain, we already would have thrown the first special 2. It just completely shuts off the node, and there's nothing dangerous about Thor. Because normally the only thing dangerous about Thor is putting him somewhere where you feel like you want to intercept him, or you feel like you don't have specials freely to control the power gain. Reed completely bypasses the power gain, and we don't have to intercept in there, so very easy. So next up we have Stryfe here. I did go ahead and put a suppression on there just to try and make sure that he would throw a few fewer specials. But when I was dueling, I noticed something in this fight that you are going to see come up. And that is that the way that Nimrod plays this fight, everything that you see thus far is basically the same way I play it against, like, Kitty Pryde, except I can parry immediately. I don't have to wait for my protocols to change. So really, really easy. We get both our vulnerability and our energize up. We're all ready to eradicate. We had 16 armors a second ago. We're still at 10 or 12. We go ahead and pay attention to the global, allow it to go on cooldown there, because we knew one of our armors was ending. We throw this special 2. It does a ton of damage. But watch this right here. That's why I threw the invulnerability on. I shouldn't have blocked that. I should have waited out my unstoppable and just like hit into his block or something along those lines. It would have done some extra shock damage, would have helped us out. But I came across that interaction while I was dueling for this. I again saw there that my special 2 didn't finish the fight, but it did send me unstoppable. Stryfe had some charges. He stunned me through my block with that passive stun, and so I'm like, okay, in case I'm too focused on Mixmaster, I don't want to have to worry about too many things at once. Let's just throw on the indestructible boost. If I do block, I get hit a couple times, it won't hurt. And that's exactly what happened. So just being prepared for those kinds of things and having a plan, super easy. So then we have Kitty here. This is the intercept node. We are not going to insist on intercepting, so it is going to be a bit slower. We just know going in we may have to play around the global more than once. So we're watching our armor ups, we're watching for when they expire, we go into eradicate here, we make sure to parry her, we're trying to refresh eradicate as much as we possibly can, and here's where we back off. We do refresh eradicate, but we wait for the miss passive to go away, or sorry, the falter passive to go away, even though it does allow her to start phasing. So that was a little bit annoying, but that's okay. Now we just wait for this to happen. We are still in control. We do lose Eradicate there. And so this is where I make my big mistake. If I had just parried one more time, if I had realized that we had fallen out of Eradicate as I was paying attention to the global, then that special 2 would have done a ton of damage instead of almost nothing. But the good news is it does give us the unstoppable that allows us to put the protection on cooldown. We get a little bit of damage in there, and we don't get smacked, right? Because when the global comes back off cooldown, we catch it, we're ready for it, we know we're okay. It's about to come off cooldown again here, and so I'm going to be very careful. I am trying to stay in Eradicate. Man, I did not realize how poorly I played this. I actually forgot. If you had asked me after I came out of this fight, if I had thrown both special twos in Titan and not in Eradicate, I would not have said yes. Well, that just shows how safe this matchup is, that I completely left tens of thousands of damage on the table and Nimrod still comes out smiling. So, there we are. He can play around the global just fine. You don't need to send a Defiance champion for Kitty, you just need to pay attention. And apparently, that's true even if you make multiple mistakes. Wow, okay, well at least you guys are getting my genuine reaction. You can tell I didn't watch that one back. Anyway, let's move on to this Benny Parker here. I like Venompool a lot here because Ebb and Flow Intercept means it's going to be a longer fight. In longer fights, Venompool does very well. So I go for the Intercept a couple times, take a few mild risks, but the reason is because we don't want protection up, and we want that Fury so we can break the shield faster. We don't necessarily need to get the shield down under the Fury, but we just make a lot more progress that way. Now, right here, I think, is where I get a little... Yeah. I don't know. I thought I had time. I thought I was just creating space or something. I don't think that was an input issue. I think that was just a judgment error. And so I take a fair amount of damage from eating that special 2. Thankfully, she wasn't too ramped. We can afford that. We just need to stay on top of this. So we are going to go ahead and build to the special 2, or sorry, to the special 3, not because we expect the giant bleed to stick, but because it will send our cooking meter spicy, and therefore we will ramp more quickly. If she auto-blocks us and tries to power burn us, that will be a full Fury instead of just 50 on the meter, and we'll just, yeah, we'll have more Furies, we'll do a lot more damage, we'll be breaking her shield faster. We don't have to worry about this fight that way. So you do see me going for an intercept here. There, I finally get it, and I hit her a few times, hit into her block again, try and break the shield. I don't get it all the way down, but I throw the special 3, expecting that it will hopefully push her to her special 2. Because if she throws that, then she's not charging and purifying the bleed. She, of course, immediately charges and purifies the bleed anyway, but it was worth a shot. Now, this right here, watch, I go for the heavy, the first hit lands, and she dexes the second. What the absolute... That obviously should not happen, right? If the first hit of your heavy lands, the subsequent hits of your heavy, like, she shouldn't recover from the hit stun fast enough to dex out. So I'm glad I didn't get wrecked for that. I just got angry about it. That is much better for the whole team. But note the fact that we're at 6 Furies right now. And because the fight has gone on a pretty good amount of time, those Furies are also being boosted by the Malice buff, because that makes our Furies stronger the longer this goes on. It doesn't apply to the passive, but that's why we're able to break the shield so quickly. Now there, I just got impatient. I shouldn't have thrown that special 2. I should have waited for her to come in. Again, I didn't get punished, but just don't make that mistake at the end. And I do think that Venompool is a really, really great counter for this. And you just saw some of the things that he can survive there. I checked the recording at the end there because I had this like feeling of dread while I was going through that fight that I had forgotten to record it. Because I think I've taken that exact fight 3 times, and the first time I forgot to record it, and the second time the recording failed. So, although that was maybe the worst version of it that I've done so far, I am glad I am able to show it to you. So then, this next fight is actually the one that originally had me wanting to bring Massacre. Because Reed is going to get through this, but this is Safeguard and Indomitable. So our damage will be capped at 1% of his health, and we will not be reversing Willpower, which is a significant source of damage for Reed in these kinds of fights normally. So it's that you're going to see that number, 2666, an awful lot in this fight. It's just going to be slow. If this were Massacre, who also has Defiance and therefore also turns off Dorm, then we probably would have been ignited somewhere around now, and the fight would probably be over somewhere in the next 30 seconds because we would have done so much incinerate damage and bypass safeguard. But, you know, making sure that Havok fight was safe was more important than speeding this one up. So, Reed is still stupid safe here. Like, I think I could probably eat multiple special ones and special twos and not have a problem. We just need to land enough of these ramped hits that he goes down, right? So I'm actually throwing a third special 2 here. I normally don't do that. I go for either special 1 spam, or maybe I build up to the special 3 and get the big fury. But because of safeguard, what I'm going for here is, alright, I'm fully ramped. This is about as hard as I'm going to hit. I'm reaching the safeguard cap even on my non-crit mediums. And so I'm going for the one source of damage over time I have, which is that shock. And it's 990 per tick, so not a ton, but it's definitely speeding up the fight a little bit. I honestly can't remember whether we were ahead on time or not in this war, but, you know, more out of avoiding monotony than anything, I would like to keep this fight as quick as it can possibly be. Now, I also realized that this is just a mistake on my part. I assigned somebody else with a She-Hulk and Reed team for the Power Stings. I definitely should have given them this fight. And I remembered it probably about here in the fight. But that's okay. No harm, no foul, still a solo. It didn't cost us the war or anything on a tie. So I'll just remember that for next time. Because Robbie crushed his She-Hulk fights this war. So I definitely should have let him take this one as well. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. We unfortunately did not win this. BG3 got another 163, so only 2 deaths. Very happy about that. I do think that we're starting to find a groove. I trust both of the players who died. I'm not worried about them. We'll keep working on that. But very happy with that for second war this season. We did have some unfortunate deaths elsewhere. Not really things I'm worried about, but I think it's... I mentioned in the last war that we had a bit of a battle group shakeup, and I think that was some of the cause of it, because whenever that happens, if a battle group changes, then you're going to need new people taking new fights, right? And that means that you're probably going to have people taking fights they haven't taken before, and there's going to be some lessons learned the hard way. So I think that's probably what happened this war. I mean, well played to x5e. I think they only died 5 times. If not, it was close to that. So there's a decent chance they would have won regardless. They played very well. But I'm not too worried about us going forward. I think that we can get those numbers down for sure. Like I said last war, I'm excited for this season. I think it's going to be a good one for SSx. But until next time, thanks so much for watching, and take care.